Hi, and welcome to Knit All the Things. My name is Laurel. I'm also known as West Maven on Instagram, Ravelry, and here. If you're new, this is a space where I talk about all the things I'm knitting, all the things I want to knit, all things yarn, just all the things. And if you're returning, welcome back, Knitting Bestie. I can't wait to catch up with you. In this week's episode, it's all about the whips. All of my works in progress. My very first ever cardigan, the champagne cardigan, and my Lana vest, a pattern by Irene, as well as a brand new cast on that you haven't seen yet. I am working on a test knit, and I'll give you a little sneak peek, so stick around for that. Grab your knitting, get cozy, and let's go. All right, let's talk about what I'm wearing really quickly. I'm wearing the Easy V sweater. This is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter, and it has a really cool neckline. It is not a typical V-neck, so it's not like you do the back and pick up and make the front V's. This is actually all knit in the round, which is really clever, and it makes it, to me, a little bit easier to knit, and it has this really sweet detail. It has a nice little, basically it's almost like raglan increases, and you have like a little shoulder kind of detail, and the nice neckline, and then a bunch of color work. This sweater was the very first time that I had ever used Spincycle yarn. This is Spincycle Dream State in the colors Nostalgia, Melancholia, and Absolute Zero. And I was really taken by Nostalgia. I think it was like my jumping off point. And when I was knitting this, I actually ran out. I'm gonna see if I can find it. I ran out on this sleeve. And what I did was I just grabbed two yarns from my stash that I ended up marling to try to hide my mistake or my lack of yarn, because I only had, I think, 3 rows, and I didn't want to buy a whole new skein for that. So I ended up just having a very close red that matched, and then holding a lighter color just so that it gave it that marled Spincycle effect. So that's kind of how I hid that I really ran out of yarn. This sweater was really easy to knit. I really was very meticulous and careful picking my colors because, again, it was my first ever garment with Spincycle. It is a more expensive yarn, and I really wanted to make sure that it was absolutely perfect. And so that took me a little while just to actually decide my colors, which is not very common. Normally I'm like, this is exactly what I'm gonna do, and I stick with it and run. But Spincycle, and I'm starting to get better at understanding how it kind of will look, but I have a really hard time picturing what it's going to look like from the skein to the garment. And I know that obviously it changes color, but it is one of those things where it's really hard for me to picture. Actually, let me show you. So I have a skein of dyed in the wool, and this is a second, but essentially it has, you can see that at some point you're gonna have this lavender color, you're gonna have some of the darker teal, but for me to picture how this is going to come out is really, really difficult. I have found, which isn't helpful when you're purchasing, but I have found when I wind it, I can get a better idea and a better sense of how this is going to fade and change. But again, it's just very difficult. So I feel like what has actually helped me kind of figure this out is studying a little bit how, if you were to hand spin yarn, how that works and how it's going to turn out and what it might look like in the skein, and then taking that knowledge and applying it to the Spincycle yarn. I know that for this one, for example, had big chunks of the colors in the skein. So you could really see clearly big chunks of white and big chunks of the blue, and then more of the gray color. So this one is going to be a much slower blending color, as opposed to this one will probably be not huge color changes, and it will probably be maybe a subtle blip of the purple is what I'm guessing. So just trying to learn what happens when you knit Spincycle was one of the things I learned with this sweater. The other yarn that I use, the black, is Brooklyn Tweed Arbor. And it was the first time that I had used this yarn as well. They had a sale, and they do, I believe, a sale once a year. And they had cones for sale for this particular one. And I purchased a couple of cones of this black Arbor. And it's highly discounted. And so it's, if you can sign up for their newsletter and get notified when their sale is, you do want to set an alarm because it sells out quickly. So you do want to be like prepared on that. But if you can snag some of their sale yarn, it's great. And this one, I really lucked out. It seemed like the cones matched perfectly, and I really, really enjoyed working with it. I think with what I have left over, I'll make a hat. So I think that's what I'm gonna do with the leftovers, but I really like this yarn a lot. When I was knitting with it, it definitely was knitting up thinner looking, especially off of the cones. But once it blocked, it definitely filled in really nicely and really made it just a beautiful fabric. So I'm so happy with it. I really enjoyed working with this yarn. I'm gonna pause for a moment because I think my washer is on the Spincycle and it's being really loud. All right. So that was my Easy V sweater by Caitlin Hunter, and I highly recommend it. She has another pattern called the Hey Lou pattern, which is in my queue, and I have yarn for it, and I'm really excited to knit it. I do think when I make that one, this was made a size 3. I do think I'm going to make a size 2, because while I do really like this oversized, it is really cozy. I do think I want the other sweater, which has a lot of lace detail, to be smaller. And that's not something I would normally say. Like, I very much love my oversized, but this one is a little bit, I would say, on the too big oversized. But I do like it, and I just will tuck it in. It has sleeves that are longer, which I really do like. I don't like it when my sleeves are too short. I do like them to come down on my hands, so all of that I really love. To me, it makes a sweater extra cozy. But again, I think if I do knit that Hey Lou, I'm definitely going to end up doing a size 2 instead of a size 3, just so that it's a little bit more fitted. Okay, so I have only one finished object, and this actually was finished last episode, but I had forgotten about it. It is the Beginner Bunny by Claire Garland. And my son had it, I think, last time, so we didn't actually get to look at it at all. So the Beginner Bunny by Claire Garland is a free pattern, and it has tutorials online on YouTube, and I'll link all of that below. But it is such a cute pattern. It really is very quick to knit. You knit everything flat and you seam it together. So if you're not a fan of seaming, you may not love this pattern, but I find it super easy, especially for tiny things, to seam. I think my seams are getting a little bit better, and I actually think working on these bunnies is what is making my seams look nicer on garments and other things. So I definitely think that is something that I'm learning with this. I do think my ears on this little guy came out a little bit better than the last couple. So I'm always learning something new. The only thing that I really changed from the pattern was his tail. So for his tail, I used Daruma Genmo, and it was just something I had left over from a previous sweater. And it is like a roving style yarn that has a strand, like a tighter strand wrapped around it. So it's extra fluffy. And what I ended up doing for this one and the previous bunny was looping it, like almost doing like a loop stitch in the tail after the tail was finished, and then kind of fluffing that up so that the stitches really are loose. This one I had more trouble for some reason. This one I had loops that were not wanting to be. I don't know if I was just quicker with this one and didn't make sure that the yarns were not coming apart, because it was for my son and it was not a baby, so I knew like I could monitor it. But it did take me a little bit more time on this tail for whatever reason, trying to get the loops just right. And for his, I did use safety eyes, and I really do think it makes the bunny super cute with the safety eyes. I can link the ones. I've just purchased them on Amazon, and I originally had purchased them for a frog, but I chose different eyes after I made a different decision. So this is our little beginner bunny by Claire Garland. I highly recommend this pattern. I think it's really cute for kids. It's a good size for little kids because they can definitely like grab it and hold it, run around with it. So yeah, that was my one finished object for this episode. I used Purl Soho Linen Quill Stone Gray, held with a Alpaca Bloom, which is discontinued from Knit Picks, but these are like leftover scraps that I had. It uses very little yarn, so it's a great stash buster. In the original pattern, she even shows the bunny in a bunch of different colors, so you could certainly make it a very colorful rainbow bunny. I think they're super cute. So that's our finished object for this week. So let's talk whips. I have so many, I almost don't know where to start, but we'll start from my longest running whip, I guess, if you will, for right now. I have been working on the Champagne Cardigan. This is a pattern by PetiteKnit, and I think last time I left it, I was at this turn up, and I've knit quite a bit, but I'm still kind of slowly plugging away. It is a little bit slower going. I have decided as I'm knitting, even though I think it's changed my tension a little bit, but it is faster for me to knit, to purl slightly differently. So when I started continental knitting, I wasn't really taught that way. I was like briefly teased by my grandmother that I was knitting very slowly, the English style. And she's like, this is the wrong way. You need to knit a different way. So she taught me how to continental knit, sort of. Like she showed me a couple of times and then set me on my way. And as I was doing that, I think I must have seen a video or something on YouTube where the person was purling differently. And I thought, oh, I can do that. So how you would do it differently would be, instead of once you're doing a purl stitch and you put your needle into the stitch through the front, like in the front, instead of wrapping over your needle and doing that purl stitch, you have the yarn and you actually kind of just grab it with your needle and do it so that it's under instead of over. So when you do that, which is fine, you have to remember to knit through the back loop on the knit side because it's changing all your stitches. If you don't, you'll have twisted stitches. So for a very long time, I didn't realize that my stitches were going to be twisted, and I would be fine because I remember to do through the back loop when I was, let me think. I think when I was knitting flat, I would remember to do it, but when I was trying to do it knitting in the round, I would do something differently and it was messing it up. So there was something off with my knits. And so I was very hesitant to do that with this cardigan, even though I know I can do it way faster than like the traditional purling or even the Norwegian purl. But I was afraid that I was going to reteach myself to do it the wrong way. However, I have so many patterns going right now that that's just not the case. I have so many other things that I have to kind of switch gears constantly. So I think I'm okay. I don't think I'm teaching myself another bad habit again. So hopefully it's not really changing the gauge. I keep kind of checking it. It does seem slightly tighter, but just barely. So I'm not going to worry about it right now. Okay. So that is my Champagne Cardigan. I think I have another maybe 6 inches or so on the body, maybe a little less, and then I'll start the ribbing. And then for this pattern, sleeves and then picking up a button band. I may just pause on the body once I run out of yarn for this next ball of yarn and then just do the sleeves just for something different. But currently I have a project that I am just knitting in the round stockinette, so I don't really need that as a thing to do because I'm already doing it. The yarn that I used for this pattern was Noro Madara. It is a tweed like yarn and it is in the color Fujisan and it is number 16. And then I am holding it with Lamb and Kid Momo and their color Trippy. And I really am liking how this is turning out. It is really, really going to be such a wonderful sweater to wear. I do note, like, it's going to be warm. I notice that when it's on my lap and I'm knitting, like, I'm warm, which is going to be so nice for the winter and fall. So I really am looking forward to finishing this. I think it's going to be well worn, and I'm enjoying the pattern. I really, really have to say that raglans are probably my easiest sweater to knit, in just that I don't have to think a lot about increases, and once you get, through the sleeves, there's not really any body shaping, so you're just in the round or knitting flat, and it just is such a great construction of sweater that it just makes it so pleasant. So I am really enjoying my champagne cardigan. This pattern is by PetiteKnit, and I'm hoping it'll be done soon. It's been on a little bit more of pause than some of my other projects because I am trying to get other things done, but I'm really looking forward to wearing this, so I do want to finish it quickly. So the next work in progress that I have is the Lana vest. This is a pattern by Irene, and I cast this on not too long ago. Since the last podcast, I finished the neck band and the armbands, I guess. They're not sleeves, but I finished those and have been working on the body. I really don't have much left to do on this, and I really want to wear it, so I'm trying to get this done. But again, it's just something that I can only do every so often. Also, because it's charted, it does take a little bit more concentration on my part, and with a house full of kids who have been sick for the last week, and that's why my voice is a little funny, because I think I'm just starting to come down with it. I haven't got to work on this, and I haven't really had just the brain capacity and bandwidth to be working on this, but I really do want to get it done. This pattern has been so fun to knit. The yarn that I used was a sample yarn by Purl Soho. It was made with essentially their 9-note bundle, which is a 20% extra fine merino, 80% extra fine merino, 20% alpaca. It's super soft. It has a lot of bounce. The yarn itself is so round and luscious. I really, really have enjoyed knitting with this. I wish that they made this just as you can buy different colors in this, because it is such a nice yarn. I think it's special that it's in the 9-note bundle, and I think if you wanted to make the Lana vest with the 9-note bundle, you could not make all the sizes, but you could make quite a few of the sizes, I believe, and you could fade it, and I think that could be really beautiful. Choose one of the colors for your neckband and your sleeves, and then just fade the rest. I think would be really pretty. But that is what I'm currently kind of catching my eye. When I sit down to knit, I really want to knit this. If I have real quiet time, I've been working on this vest. If not, then I have to just kind of pick up one of my stockinette projects and kind of work on those. So you might remember that the last episode I had talked about Joji Locatelli's fall knit along and what I had planned to make for that. I really haven't done a lot. I am going to finish. She has different challenges, and for her September challenge, which obviously will be ending at the end of September, if you have a Joji project that is a work in progress that needs to be finished, you can sign up for this without having signed up for her fall knit along, and you just need to finish one of your projects. So I had started this last year's knit along and just kind of set it aside. And I have been working on it, but just not a ton. I have a test knit that I'm working on that has been taking up all of my time, but I do think I'm at a point where I feel comfortable setting that down and working on this for a couple of days to finish it up. And I hope to do that before the end of the month. It is nice to have those little goals for me, because sometimes finding the motivation, not that I want the shawl, I don't necessarily always want to knit something that's a whip, if that makes sense. Like, it's always more fun to cast on. Also, speaking of Joji Locatelli, I'm mad at her. No, I'm not really. She just recently published her granny cardigan, and let me tell you, I need it in my life. It is a gorgeous all over cable design. It kind of is a little bit of an oversized fit, and it's a longer cardigan. I just absolutely love this cardigan, and I'm so mad because I have so many projects, and I really, like, instantly the second I saw it, I started looking through my stash, and then I was looking online to purchase yarn, and I'm like, what am I doing? I don't even think I have needles at this point to cast this on because I have so many things. So please check that pattern out. It is so cool. I really love it. I'm probably going to make one. I don't know when, but it is so gorgeous. She really is such a good designer, and like so creative, always doing different things. She has so many things that you could tell, like, oh, that's a Joji pattern, but she also like goes outside the box all the time with her patterns, which I just really love. So if you haven't seen that cardigan, I'm gonna let's put a picture here. But that way you can check it out. It is so cool. I really love the yarn that she used, and the color is just so amazing. It's a Lobby Anime yarn, and I believe it's her Cori worsted. I could be incorrect. If I am, I'll put the information on the screen. And it's just such a bright, fun color, and I really love it. And I just think it makes, like, that yarn really does well with the cables. It's just so beautiful. Everything, all the choices she made were just amazing. So wish me luck on getting this shawl finished. The pattern is the Collective Shawl, and it is using as the main color Lobby Anime's, I think it's just like a super sock, her sock yarn, and it is using the color Drogon, and then it's kind of a mystery mini skein situation. I purchased like a bundle of 5 mini skeins online from somebody's D-stash, and I have, like, I'm sure it is similar yarn, meaning I think it's like a sock yarn, but I don't know the maker or the colors or anything like that. It's literally a mystery to me, but it matched so perfectly, and I really like it a lot. We have to talk about my test knit, but first we are going to talk about this sweater behind me. So behind me is the Alpine Bloom Tee, and I made this sweater this summer. It was a test knit for Caitlin Hunter, and I enjoyed it. The color work is so pretty. This sweater is just gorgeous. I used linen yarn. I used Issair. I believe it's Hor Organic, and in the colorways Ink and Camel. And it's just a gorgeous yarn, gorgeous pattern. I really loved it, and I had so much fun. The neckline has beautiful lace, and so do the sleeves, and it's just a fun, wonderful pattern, and I enjoyed it. I really have noticed a lot of floral motifs lately in knitwear, and I do think it's definitely like a trend. At least I feel it is. And I really love this sweater. So she put out a test knit call for the Alpine Bloom sweater. And so it's using the similar motif, and I will tell you all about mine. So let's start with the yarn. The yarn that I'm using for my Alpine Bloom pullover or sweater is Magpie Fibers Swanky Sock. This is the color Selkie. So it is a very ashy brown. I would say it's not too like reddish leaning. I would almost say it's like a gray leaning. It's not overly, it's just a nice chocolate brown. It's definitely just a nice chocolate brown. So I have this color, chocolate brown, or the Selkie by Magpie Fibers. And then for my color work, I used Les Garçons Yak Sock, in the colorway Emma Stone. And then I decided to hold it with Magpie Fibers Plume, which we'll talk about that in a second, in the colorway Harpoon. So to me, I love all yak yarn. I think it is so soft. It is so luxurious, and I really, really enjoy it. It always has like a nice, just subtle halo, and I just think it's like so special. I had never knit with Magpie Fibers Plume, and it is like nothing I've ever touched. It is 75%, let me double check. Yeah, 75% cashmere and 25% silk. So just the feel of it alone is just amazing. And I'll tell you in a minute the better part of it. So I thought I would hold it with this just to give like a little bit of a fuzz to my color work. And it really worked out very well. The colors are slightly different, and so it definitely adds a little more depth to my contrast color, which I really, really love. I also think that it really, really, really has just, it could not be better. So if you are wanting to purchase like these exact yarns and you only want to purchase Magpie Fiber, which you can, I would get Selkie, the Harpoon colorway in the Plume. You can get another Harpoon colorway in the Swanky Sock for your contrast color, or you could do the color Castaway, which is a little bit lighter if you wanted more of that kind of marled look. So get the yak sock if you want, but if you were like, I'm gonna place one order and this is what I wanna buy, that's how I would do it. This all was in my stash. Every so often, Magpie Fibers does, I think, a yearly sale, and so I had purchased a sweater's quantity of this color without plans, which lately I've been trying not to do unless it's something that I know for sure I will use, like a dark fingering weight yarn. Yes, I will use that for something, but I'm trying to sort of minimize some of those purchases that I've been making just because it is always nice to like buy fresh yarn for a fresh project and be excited about all of the things then. So I am so excited that I got to actually use my stash for this. This I also actually, the Harpoon I also got in a D-stash. So that was lucky because it is a more expensive yarn. So yeah. So before I show you the outside of the sweater, I want to show you the inside of the sweater. So this is why the Plume was a magical choice and not something I had thought of. So for the color work, and so where you're wearing, obviously the color work on the sweater is going to be up around your neck and chest. It's going to have this gorgeous fuzz on the inside that is going to be so soft and glorious, like you have never dreamed of. It is really quite magical. And I never really put that together when I was picking out yarns. I just thought, oh, this is like pretty and I love the colors and I get to use this special yarn that I've been saving for a long time. But really, after I knit it and tried it on, I was like, wow, what a great call. Using the Plume in the contrast color for the color work, because on the inside of that sweater, it is like a, you know when you wear a like brand new fleece and the inside is just so ridiculously soft? That's what it feels like against your skin. It is really magic. Okay, enough of me fangirling about that yarn. Again, if it's within your budget and you can try it, I was impressed. Okay. And for something like this, maybe it would be worth the splurge because you are only using, I think I'll only use one skein of the Plume for this. So, okay. So I'm going to flash a little sneak peek. Some of the differences in this, and I'll talk about the whole sweater once I'm done and the pattern is released, which is supposed to be mid-October, I believe. But she changed the neckline, the cuffs and sleeves, and the hem. So those places, the sweater is very different, and then obviously long sleeves. So let me flash mine. It truly is so soft. The like fuzz is unreal. It really is just so good. And having that silk kind of gives it a little shimmer along with the, like, cashmere and the silk definitely is not like a shiny yarn. Some mohair would be very like shiny. And this definitely has a mattified effect, but it still has a little bit of shine. And it really just has like such depth. I really can't wait to wear this sweater and show you all of the details on it. But for now, we'll just do a little flash and keep an eye out for this pattern. I really, really enjoyed knitting it. I knit it, I mean, obviously, it's a different sweater, but wanting the same motif and everything twice really says a lot about a pattern. So enjoyable to knit. Because I was using wool and the cashmere, I did not do the jacquard, ladder back jacquard for my color work because there are some spaces of large lengths of each color. However, I was able to catch floats and I cannot see them at all because it is a more fluffy yarn. For the linen version, I did do some ladder back jacquard because with the linen, it's not like it blooms and you can like hide some of your catches. And with the high contrast, I was really afraid that you could see a lot of those catches if I just caught my longer strands, particularly at the bottom. I do have a couple spots where I do need to fix the ladder back, but I think just by like pulling it, I can like kind of fuss with it a little bit. I really like both sweaters. This pattern is out now. You can certainly purchase it and knit it. And this one, again, like I said, I think will be out towards the end of October. So that is all I have right now for my knits. I do plan on casting on something new. If I can finish any of these, I'm going to reward with myself with casting on something new. So we'll see by next time. I have been sick. Everybody's been sick in my household. First couple of weeks of kindergarten, I expected it. I almost thought I was going to get away with not getting sick at all because my oldest was sick and my youngest and I were kind of hanging on there. And then we, like a few days ago, kind of started feeling not so great, but we're making it through. I have been listening to a lot of podcasts while knitting lately, particularly a Australian crime podcast called Shandy's Story. It's about an Australian woman that was murdered and kind of all of the details and things leading up to. I would say the first episode's a little bit upsetting because they do play some of the 911 calls and they do have some of the like police recording. So like when they're telling the parents that their child is no longer there is recorded, and that was pretty upsetting. So that's a fair warning. But once you get kind of past that, the whole rest of the investigation and all the like problems with prosecuting the alleged murderer was really interesting to me. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, I have done the Stephen Westcal mystery knit along the last 2 years, and the first year I was all in. I purchased yarn, I think in a kit. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think I purchased a kit or kind of put a kit together, like brand new yarn, all just for the mystery knit along for the shawlography. And then for twists and turns, I stash dived for that shawl. And I did not cast on until I think week 2. Week 1, I was like, I don't know. Because at first I was like, I'm not doing this. And then my FOMO got the best of me and I cast on the shawl like after a couple of clues. And clue 1 took me forever. That was like rough. I did not necessarily enjoy the process of that knit, but I do enjoy that shawl quite a bit. This year's MCal, I don't know, the gradient, it's the gradient something. I think it will be cool. I pulled yarn that if I get super jealous, I can knit on, like cast on. But at this moment in time, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. That can change. I always change my mind, but right now I'm not doing it. If you are knitting it, let me know, because I want to follow you and watch your journey of knitting this mystery knit along. But I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to. Let me know if you're going to be casting on for the mystery knit along, or if you have done it in the past. I really think they're fun. I think it's fun because you don't know what's coming next, but the like control freak in me wants to like plan so much that it just grates on me a little bit. I think I like to know what's happening. However, they're such big projects that if I don't cast on like a giant shawl like that during a knit along, there's just no chance I'll finish it. So let me know, are you casting on the Stephen West knit along? I'm so curious if you are. Let me know if you've used Plume before, if you can use it, if you can find it on D-Stash. Look on Ravelry for the yarn and go to stashes and see if people are willing to trade or sell. Maybe there's some in D-Stash, I don't know. But keep an eye out for it, because sometimes that's how I find some of my fancier yarns, if you will, is by just kind of keeping an eye on like various sales. Like I said, Magpie Fibers does a sale once a year, so maybe that will be your like one splurge. But keep an eye, because sometimes you can use these fancier yarns. Like I was showing earlier, Spincycle yarn a second. Like that is a way to try sometimes a fancier yarn for a little bit less expensive if you are willing to be flexible in what you get. They have on their website, if you go to spincycleyarns.com and then you go over to, I believe there's sale, and then they have seconds. They always have it up there. It's a mystery bundle, and they always have it on their site if they have the yarn available to them, which I feel like anytime I've looked, it's always there. So that's one way to try it out. You don't really get to specify. You could leave a note saying, hey, I really wish it was like Dream State, or I really wish it was dyed in the wool. But that way you can, again, try some of the kind of fancier yarns for more budget friendly. That's all I have. That's all I have, you guys. I hope that you are staying healthy, knitting on something you love. I really, really am glad that I filmed today. Again, feeling under the weather. I've made a commitment to myself to do these videos every 2 weeks, and I want to make sure that I do. Until next time, if we're not yet knitting besties, hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like. It tells YouTube that other fiber enthusiasts like yourself enjoy this type of video. Talk to you soon. Bye!